Woke me up. I never had it. My cousin had it. Oh my, I Are we starting early? No. That's a little better. Bill, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you.
I can.
You're our only attendee, so you're our guinea pig. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. It is 4 o'clock. Does anyone have any oral communications for items not on the agenda? Okay, I see no hands. We have no minutes from last month's meeting because our secretary computer was damaged. So MJ, are you going to be able to recreate those minutes?
Yeah, I finally got Word installed on my computer yesterday, so I will issue this month's and last month's minutes in the next packet.
Okay, thank you very much. We really appreciate all the work that goes into for those minutes. So
Yeah, I apologize. Oh, and plus, so I haven't done any wildfire tips last week or this week for the same reason.
Right. Oh, and I forgot to do roll call. So MJ's here, Wanda's here, Jennifer's here. Dee and Nona are out, but we still have a quorum because our committee size is 5. Okay.
Is Craig coming today? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, so we have, the first thing is our fire marshal update, and Kim, you're gonna have to, again, train me on your last name because I forgot. Kim Giuliacci is here, who's going to be our new fire marshal in January. Sure, because then you'll have a microphone. Make sure it's on.
Hello? Okay, just making sure it works. Okay, so good evening, or yes, almost good evening, everyone. The new status is on the vegetation ordinance. So we were looking at rolling it out in a first reading this month and then doing 60 days as requested. But what we decided to do instead for the, it's going to be called the fuel mitigation ordinance, was to actually present it for the first time at the workshop that I'm going to be doing. And we'll give everybody a draft, and it's going to be on our website, pushed out there. It's going to be a draft form so that you'll actually have a long time to be able to comment and review and kind of take it in. But the workshop I'll be doing, I'll send out a flyer to disperse to everybody. This month has been kind of busy because it's been fire prevention month. So it'll be in November. And then we won't actually look for a reading until January. And then from there, so you'll have way more than 60 days to be able to look at it. And then from there, we're looking at 30 days from that point in January to February for adoption. So yes,
So I want to get this straight. So you're going to have a November
Workshop.
Is that going to be Zoom as well as live?
yes,
And is that early November?
early, yes, early November. Yeah, within the first week, most likely, or two. But what I wanted to get feedback was I just need to have an idea what time would be best to do it so that I can try to accommodate as many schedules as possible. So I didn't know, and I know we are going to also offer it on Zoom, but I also need to look at how do I go about booking this particular space to do the workshop in person. And then because this has great Zoom capabilities, I figured that way we can do it both. So I still need to look into booking it and then a good time and day of the week that would be good.
So who are you looking to attend?
Anybody, all residents, any residents that want to come. It's open to the town of Portola Valley, any residents that want to attend. It won't be only one. I'm going to do probably two, maybe three, depending on the numbers that come in on the first and second one. I may even do a third workshop, but definitely at least two. That way, if a date works better for some people than another date, I can do that. So that's what I'm envisioning for November.
No, I'm just trying to get the logistics of this particular workshop done. So so the easiest thing to do would be just to say you want to do it at our next committee meeting, and you can have the whole time.
Oh,
And
okay.
then
That works.
it's done. And that way, because there's and then anybody can attend.
Yeah.
And anybody can ask questions. But then, we can reschedule it. Yeah, it's the 15th. MJ, what do you think about that? Because I think I can't think of a better use of our time.
I think that would be great, because then the other thing with these meetings is that if more than, or if three of us show up, then it becomes a Brown Act issue, right? So it's
Yes,
best
that's
for
true.
for us personally as members to do it for him to present at one of our committees.
That
That's
sounds
true.
fabulous to me.
That's true.
I'm flexible. I'm just trying to figure out what works best.
Then, and that way Dee can zoom in to watch, even though she's recovering. Nona can be here, because we can't have more than 3 people at a meeting without it being a formal meeting. So,
okay.
so, and then I will just, the agenda will be yours. It will be your,
Perfect.
I mean, it'll be our meeting, but it'll all be about you presenting, and we can help you if you have a PowerPoint or something to
Sure.
give on a computer.
Yeah.
You just log in and you can share the screen and you can present that and we'll do that. That's fantastic.
Perfect.
Okay.
Let's plan for that then. And then what we'll do, let's see, this week. No, so end of next week, you can just go onto our website. Our new website is not launching yet till November. So what you can do for now is go on the WFPD website under prevention, or even actually a quicker way is a little magnifying glass in the top right corner, write in fuel mitigation, and then the ordinance will pop up. That way you're not searching for it wherever it might live, because it's not the most user-friendly, but that way you'll find it a lot quicker.
That's next week or now?
Yes, so just at the end of next week, you can go, and that way you can find the draft online. And that way it's already there. You can look at it, you can start to review it that way. And the reason why I want to do that ahead of time is so when we do have the workshop time, is that everybody starts to get prepared with any questions they might have so we can clarify things.
So we're gonna have the ordinance available at the end of next week. You'll have your first workshop at our meeting.
Mhm.
I can put that ordinance in our agenda for that meeting. And we can start putting in the newsletter that we are going to start taking comments and saying you're going to
Questions.
have
Mhm.
workshops. So then the first reading will be when?
Not till January.
January.
So whatever that last Tuesday of January is,
And then 30 days after that.
and then 30 days of that. So you'll have a lot of time. You can have a lot of conversation. I'm really trying to keep it even, getting feedback, getting questions, answers, clarification. I just want to make it as simple of a process as possible with everybody understanding it.
So thank you. This is a wonderfully transparent schedule. I think it's very doable even over the holidays. I think everyone's going to feel very heard, and it'll give the residents a chance to ask their questions and really understand. You may not be able to make them happy, but they'll understand the answers. Okay. Go ahead, Juan.
Is the November 15th presentation going to be restricted to Portola Valley residents?
No,
It doesn't have to be. I don't know how you guys usually run it. Is it
Oh.
open to everybody?
The ordinance is the whole.
It's the whole
fire
district.
protection district,
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
Well, how do I find out exactly what's included in that?
The ordinance?
No,
It-
no, the district
What do you mean?
what's on the fire?
graphically.
It's the whole what the whole Woodside Fire District is. So it's town of Woodside, town of Portola Valley, and all the unincorporated areas of San Mateo.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
So I highly
32 square miles.
So go ahead and let anybody you know in the district know about it, and then they're welcome to attend.
Oh, that's wonderful. Then I'll
Absolutely,
do
and
that.
Zoom.
Thank you. That saves, I was gonna hop around. So that's wonderful. Thanks.
So Kim, just a couple of. so
Sure.
What did you say that new ordinance is going to be called?
Well, it's a long title, but the easiest is fuel mitigation ordinance.
Okay, and you said it's going to be on the,
It'll be on our website at the end of next week.
Yeah, on the, you said the fire prevention page? Did you go to the-
It'll be under the fire prevention page where the ordinances are, but it will be easier to find if you just type it into the little magnifying search window, just to type in fuel mitigation, so it comes up. Yeah.
I'm going to probably ask if anyone else has questions from attendees. Do you want to catch Don up to make sure he doesn't have any problems with what we've just?
Oh, he's good.
Okay, good. Okay, does anyone, our attendees have any questions just about this one little subject? Because I know it's an important subject. Okay. Okay, continue. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I put my hand up. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. I didn't see you. Go ahead.
Well, with all the attendees, I can see I got lost, but first a comment. I think this is great. I think this is a great way to roll out this kind of ordinance. Kudos to Kim. I think it's wonderful. The only other, it's not quite a question, is I do think the issues for Emerald Hills in particular and Woodside to some extent are different from Portola Valley. So it's a committee meeting and everybody in the world can attend. But up to you whether you want to try and promote it as a whole district meeting or an opportunity to focus on some of the issues that might be unique to Portola Valley. I just thought I'd bring that up.
Thank you. It's definitely something that's been considered while writing the ordinance, but the ordinance is actually, so at the last meeting, we kind of spoke briefly that the state had created a template, the Model D space template, which we did adopt because it gives minimum standards because obviously you can't capture every single jurisdiction's needs. And we only modified by adding a few things. And I will highlight that when we do have our workshop, what were those things? But the things that we added to that template that was put out by the state were already things that were in our ordinance already that have been there for many years. So it's nothing new. It'll just be included as part of this ordinance. So it is definitely something we looked at with, all the areas that we cover. The same basis will still be required no matter where you are.
Kim, I totally get that. I agree. I'm just thinking in terms of the workshop focus, it'd be easy to get into a discussion of, oh, we have a 2 driveway lot in Emerald Hills, and what does that mean for us? So the value of something that was all about PV, it might just be more efficient from a PV standpoint, but I totally defer to the committee and you.
Okay, thank you.
I have such concerns about the logistics of trying to get the schoolhouse and the mechanism of getting the word out. And I'm so delighted to be able to help the fire district with these workshops. Does the committee agree with me? I love the idea of having it during our meeting. So, and I think any question that anybody has in the district is going to be relevant to somebody in Portola Valley. And our agenda is rather clear for the next few months, given the holidays. So I really think it's a great vehicle.
Thank you for bringing that up, David.
Okay. Any other questions about this? Okay, so please continue with your update. I'm sorry to.
Oh, no, that's
I'm
fine.
so excited about it.
So that is what we have on the vegetation ordinance. The next thing that was brought up as a possible update was communication with the residents. I believe it's on your agenda. Did you want me to touch on that now, or do you want me to wait till you get to that point in your agenda? Or is that in your agenda for today?
It is. Are you going to stay for the meeting?
Yeah, I am.
Then let's wait and.
Okay,
do
perfect.
then.
Okay, then moving on. The other one, there was a topic that was brought up and I wanted to get some clarification. It was asked about Portola Valley becoming a fire risk reduction community. Are we talking that versus Firewise community? We're just speaking fire risk reduction because there is a list for that, but it's something different than the Firewise community.
Well, so first of all, I don't think the town's ever considered the whole town becoming a Firewise community. We've certainly
Not the
talked
whole
about it,
town, but
yeah.
every neighborhood, all the neighborhoods.
There was talk about what was just before Cara left about us becoming a fire or community risk reduction community. And
Well, is this in regards to the discussion we had at the fire station?
No, this
Email.
would be different, but I wanted to understand because I have some information if we're going more on Firewise, but if we're looking at community risk reduction community, that would be a whole different scale. And I would like to do a separate presentation for that because that's more involved to really explain that and benefits versus reasons to do it and what it would take to do it and all that, which would be more than what we would have time for today. So if that's something that I just wanted to clarify what it is that you're looking for so that I can prepare that answer better.
Well, I mean, I had brought it up with you because I had thought that the only way we're ever going to get grants is if we get on the list for the fire risk reduction.
And that is a different list. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is also benefit and reduction for insurance premiums on for being a Firewise community as well. So we know that there is benefits and also government assistance with being a Firewise community as well. That's another reason when you become a Firewise, it's another benefit that can also come as the government and state will help support those communities.
So let's put this on our scope here. So I know that before Cara left, before Jeremy left, and there was a great deal of discussion within Portola Valley about becoming a community risk reduction site, so to help with insurance. And I think and I thought they were talking with the district about that. And of course, we have a new town manager now. And so it would be probably a good topic to educate us what we can do so that we can focus. Hopefully the
So
town
would
to
it be
do
helpful maybe to do a presentation where I can touch on, because they're all different programs, is all of them, just so everybody knows what each of them are and have an understanding what they are, what you would need to do, and then what the benefit would be of each. Because they're all different, but they can offer the same kind of benefits, but it's just the process is different.
Well, so as for me, I've read a lot about them. I mean, and I've been pushing for us to have a CWPP that's specific for the district, because that helps with grants as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it would be more useful to know what the district has decided they want us to do. Because
Oh, you
I
mean
would-
as the fire district
Yeah,
themselves?
because I would imagine that anything we do as a district. It's not like we can, I mean, it would be very difficult for the town
Sort
of
of.
Portola Valley to create their own California Wildfire Protection Plan. That's something the district would have to do. The risk reduction plan involves working with the district. So and all these plans are something that you can list in a grant, which is another topic we should talk about.
Yeah.
So I think we need a plan of what you want Woodside and Portola Valley and the whole district to do so that we can start.
And we can only get there with offering a plan once we know. So once we know what the goal is the goal to be able to get insurance premiums lowered? Are we looking to get more support in grants, or being able to get more approval in grants if we're able to say we're this versus that? So, there's a side the fire district can help with, but there's a side that, as far as a community, we also need the guidance of what is your ultimate goal. I mean, our goals are run in line with, obviously with life safety, protection of property, but what you want as far as residents are going to be different.
I think that's something you should probably talk with the town manager about.
Yeah. So I'll talk to Sharif. We'll have a conversation and kind of come up with something, and we can go from there. At least it's a starting talking point.
But if you do end up doing a CWPP, the committee would love to participate and simply be able to offer possible specific suggestions. The Marin CWPP is a work of art, and I would love to see our district have, because one of the problems that we have had, our committee has had with the fire mitigation program funding, is the town hasn't decided what program that they want to fund. And any of these programs would help us focus, and I think help us as a town decide what our direction is.
Yeah, I think though that what Kim is saying is, I sense that she wants to know what the community expects from her and from the
Yeah.
district. And in a way, this is a good forum for her to find that out if we got enough people to show up and tell her what are the, top priorities for them, why they aren't doing mitigation, or how do they get their neighbors to do mitigation, whatever their issues are. She needs a way to find that out.
Do you want me to contact the mayor and find out where we are with it and then
Sure.
get back with
Yeah.
you. Let me.
I mean, because, it's, all this feedback's important. We can't help develop a program because it's not for us. This is for you guys. And we need to know what you all want and what you need in order for us to help deliver, because it's obviously a team, it's a team effort. We have to do it all together. Everyone has their role to play.
Let me contact Jeff and find out where the town council left it so that we don't have to revisit, because that's a waste of our time, because this is a town council decision, but they may have already made a decision, in which case we can help them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can report back on it at the next.
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay, next item. I have not had a chance to completely do research on this, but I did have some questions that I wanted to clarify also so that I can prepare a better process. So it was a way, and I don't know if this is on your agenda, so stop me and we can talk about it then. But it was a way of Portola Valley fast track process for giving residents permission to remove trees.
So, and your update is just, that's the agenda item. You can always come in and talk about anything you want. So this is something I asked on 6 months ago. I said, what can we do to help you? The first thing he said was, we discussed finding a way to give the fire district permission to go on private property when they're doing their inspection and people weren't at home. And I checked with Jeremy before he left, and that's not possible. But we also discussed a fast track way where if you tag a tree, residents can get permission to remove it quickly. And this is something that I have been able to move ahead. So currently, if you tag a tree for a resident, they go on the website and there is a 2-page description of
Is this Portola Valley's
Portola
website?
Valley. This
Okay.
is only Portola Valley. And there's like a 2-page form where you have to fill out if it's a significant tree. First, you have to decide if it's a significant tree, but then you have to give reasons and fill it out. And there's no check mark that says the tree is a danger. It's been tagged by the fire district. So I reached out to Conservation and Laura Russell, who's now gone, but Building and Planning is fine with this. And both Conservation and the town said that they like the idea of doing a fast track permit where if you tagged a tree, there is a mechanism where they can get a resident approval to remove that tree within a week or two, rather than months of process. So what we need in order to do that, and this is something that I would coordinate, because I have to make sure Conservation's very happy about it, because they approve all tree removals.
One of my
Yes,
questions.
Yes, yes, and I've already talked to the chair of Conservation, and,
Okay.
and this is something that everybody has to know about, and I will handle. But so what they need is they need a picture of the tree, and then they need, so the first question they asked is, well, can the inspector send a picture of the tree and the address and say, hey, we want to remove this tree, and then the town can just send out the information and say, yes, you can remove it. And I thought that would probably be difficult given your software and your.
Through ours?
Yes.
Oh, we have great software.
So, I mean, is that
that.
possible that when you tag a tree, you can actually send that to the town right away and send it to the homeowner at the same time and everybody gets that?
So things that I need to know so that I can incorporate that. So let me tell you, as you're kind of in the middle of sort of talking about the process, let me tell you things that we have to look at as far as a fire district when we talk about this kind of process. The first thing is we have to consider our authority to be able to even tag the tree to begin with, right? Because we can't give direction without knowing what the liability is going to be behind it. Should this do any kind of environmental impact from an environmental standpoint, conservation impact, and property owner impact, private versus public? So those are the things that we need to consider in part of our process that we have to evaluate. Because we are not arborists, I mean, obviously if it's, because sometimes it might look like an obvious dead tree, but maybe it's a dormant tree. And unless the person who's doing it is very knowledgeable, that's also a liability for tagging a tree. That's why there has to be, we're looking at what does that process look like? Does it mean bringing in we tag it because we're recommending that this is a hazard or a danger, a dead tree, but is an arborist coming out to look at it? Are they also agreeing with this decision? Because we have to make sure, removing a tree, it's not just, oh, let's just remove this. We know that there are laws that protect trees, whether it's heritage, all these different things. And we need to make sure that whatever the town's ordinance and laws are on tree removal, that we're also abiding by that. We're kind of following line. So I need to learn more about that, with what the town has on laws on that. But then the next thing, so those are all the things that I was thinking about with fast tracking, is making sure that as a district, we're covering our bases before we actually tag a tree. But yes, if we were able to conclude that this tree is a hazard, we tag the tree. I need to make sure that it's clearly delineated our authority to do so. And then if it is, yes, we can take a picture. We have software that would deliver that to the homeowner, so long as we do have their email. And if we don't, it usually comes down to knocking on the door and being able to access that, because we do need to have a means of getting that to them. And then emailing that picture to whoever is going to be in charge, whether it's in planning or who that point of contact is going to be for this. So this becomes should almost be like its own program, because someone needs to be a contact person who's going to manage all this too on the town side.
Yeah, that part that they weren't concerned about. So I'm surprised. So there's with Portola Valley, if the circumference of a tree is, for example, if it's a coastal live oak and it's more than 36 inches, it's considered significant, and you have to get approval. But if it's dangerous, I didn't hear anything from conservation or the town that if it's a danger to the house or a fire danger, that there would be a problem with removing it.
And that's a distinction too. What is considered a danger and what's our authority with that danger, depending on what it is. You could say, I mean, I see a lot of trees that are dangerous, but it doesn't mean that we can remove them. We can't just, we have to put a process in place, but we need to discuss as a district, as the fire department, what that process is going to look like.
Okay.
And what we can and can't do, or what we should and shouldn't do. And we need to have a legal discussion with the liabilities of that.
So when you tag a tree and there's that little yellow tag on it, does it have the address?
No, I just looked at the tag today because when I saw this and I said, can I see what the tags look like? There is no address on it.
Because it would be nice to, even on the form, to say, was your tree tagged by the fire district? And it would be nice to know that yellow tag had not walked to another property.
Right. I'm just going to relocate this.
Yes, yes. So even if we could just get the address on the tag,
Yeah.
and a description of the tree, like it's 20 feet from the house or 10 feet of the house. And that way conservation knows.
Maybe what's the hazard that's being identified as to why
Yeah.
this, yeah.
And that would be something then on our side, the Portola Valley website, on the form, we can just get the form modified where there's a checkbox that this tree has been tagged, and it will be given priority because the fire district. So if you can do that.
Yep. And we'll have more discussion about this that way. Let's say for the next meeting, we can actually give you some information and update on this.
Okay. And then I'll reach out to the town manager. Yeah, go ahead.
If you're talking about taking a picture of the tree and tagging a tree and putting the address on the tag, how public is that going to get?
None. It would just be between us and, well, I mean, the tag is public. But as far as the picture goes, it'll just be whoever the point of contact is going to be with the town and then the fire district.
I'm just thinking that there are people who would not like other people to know that they have a tagged tree.
Yeah, and I don't know what that means for, again, there's always the making happy versus has to be done kind of thing. And again, that's definitely a consideration on the town side for a process with what they are willing to deal with
Yeah,
the
my concern is
residents.
just how public it is.
Yeah, that's how public it would be, the tags on the tree. But the tags are not huge. I looked at them, they're like this big. And unless you're really looking at a tree, which a lot of, some people, they're just mindset driving to their destination, not going to know. I mean, and that's only if it's on the public right of way, right? If we're talking about, off of someone's private driveway or something that, that's not going to be as obvious. But it has to be obvious enough for the homeowner to know as well.
Right, right.
Dawn, is there anything you wanted to add to that topic? Okay.
I like the idea that you would have a photographic record of what tree
Oh, yeah, for sure.
was associated.
Oh, yeah. Okay, moving on. The next one was about the joint grant writer. So that is we would love to continue that discussion, but ultimately is who is able to make the decision when it comes to the funding. Is that something WPC or is that town council business? Like who is ultimately the one that's going to say that we can do this?
The town council makes all of the budgetary discussions.
That's right.
The town manager weighs in. Sometimes we are asked to weigh in.
Because it's been in discussion of saying, yeah, we love the idea. That's great. But we need to get to the point where it's contracted. Yes, we agree. We're all signing this contract and we're all going to support it and provide this much funding for it. So we need to get to that step so that we can move forward with it.
Yeah. Because Wanda and I are the finance and insurance subcommittee. My concern, a matter of fact, our committee, one of our recommendations for the budget this year was to fund a grant writer and possibly a joint grant writer. And that was received very well by the town council. My concern is that it is defined in advance what grants the grant writers are going to try to get. So Portola Valley is a little tight on money right now. And, you might be able to, well, it's unlikely, but if, let's say you were able to get us a grant for some kind of a matching fund program, it is unlikely that we could afford to supplement that so all residents could participate. It's also unlikely that we could continue it because that's a huge amount of money for that kind of program. If you could get a grant for our right-of-way program, that would be very, very useful. It's a very possible grant because we have such a long history of funding the right-of-way project. We need more money. That would be something that at least I would advocate for, and I bet I could convince the committee to advocate for, because that would be a grant that I think would be very likely. So I think that if it's going to be a joint grant writer, the needs of Portola Valley are very different than Woodside.
Oh, yeah. It would have to be, it would be, or, if there's a joint grant writing between, let's say, all the towns along with the fire district, if let's just say we all went for a fund and all three of us were sharing this grant, I think there needs to be clear agreement and delineation of what is both an agreement for this grant writer that would benefit all the communities, right? Or the discussion would be, okay, these are the grants or the needs that Woodside has. These are the grants, the needs that town of Portola has. And, there has to be someone who's going to manage, if let's say we do 20,000, you do 20,000, they do 20,000. When a grant comes up to meet some of the specifics, that grant writer would write an award to town of Portola Valley. But does that mean town of Portola Valley is going to take the turn because they've got all these grants? So there's got to be a very careful delineation with sharing the funds. So it's not like, oh, well, the grant writer's been writing only for Portola Valley, but nothing for Woodside because Woodside didn't have this on their list of the things that they wanted or whatever. So I think that for that kind of program, which is why if this is the direction we're going, we have to decide first how we are looking at either dividing it or jointly, or is it like, Woodside will do partial to town of Portola Valley and do partial to Woodside, and then have different grant joint writers for each, keeping them separate because of the needs. So I think those are all discussions that need to be had so that it can come up with a plan.
So I think there's two ways to approach it, or you could approach it both ways. You could go to the town manager and you can make your pitch to him. You could take your pitch to us, and if we're comfortable with the mechanism, we can go to the town manager and or the town council and say, we would like you to consider this.
Well, it's a great idea, but I think as towns, you guys need to come up with what you want and talk to the town manager. We're just going to help support you. The grants aren't for us. Unless the grant is specifically for us as a fire district, it's for the community. So that's what you guys have to come up with. We're just there to support you.
Then under our update, we'll discuss that report that is up in the air about
Okay.
funding. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Let's see. The next one was an update on the fire maps. On the fire maps, the CAL FIRE maps. So the only update is no update. The SRA maps are the ones that they've been putting all their focus on right now. Once that's completed, they are moving to the LRA maps. And the SRA maps were sometime towards now, end of the year-ish, but that's all we know. So I missed the last meeting that CAL FIRE did on their wildfire preparedness committee that they also have through the state. And I'm sure Chief Berlant, I'm sure it was part of discussion they brought up, and I was not there for that meeting. So he may have done an update there. I'll have to reach out to some people and see if he did, to see if there was something new that came out of it. But as of what we heard last, that was the latest.
Well,
Um,
I know I've read that CAL FIRE is going for a third round of public comment, and they hope to have it done in December so that they can get the LRA in January. But isn't this Shay Broussard right here with Flame Up?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the maps we funded the fire district for that were in beta or preview 10 months ago, and I don't think we've heard anything since. Those would be great.
I'll let you talk.
So the maps that were funded by the fire district from Flame Mapper are done, but we're not using those maps as our hazard maps. We're waiting for CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE is going to come out with their maps. We are going to look at what they come out with, and then we're going to look at the data that's on there, and we're going to decide whether or not we agree with those. And then there's a process where we can petition to either make those maps more stringent based on data that we have collected. Currently, it's the 5-meter LiDAR that's done through the Golden Gate Recreation Area, as well as what we have from Flame Mapper. And so we're waiting for them to come out with their maps before we can look at it and determine whether or not, as local experts on our district, whether or not we want to make those maps more stringent, or if we agree with what CAL FIRE says.
That's cool. So you've published the final maps?
No, we have not published the final maps yet. We're still waiting. We're still waiting to finish up with Flame Mapper. We're going to finish up by the end of the year, so we should have something by the end of the year that we can share.
I
But
thought
we're
you
going to
said
use
they were
those maps
done.
internally for our own mitigation purposes.
But so you're using them, we paid for them, they're done, but we can't see them. Can we file a PRA to get them?
You can file a PRA, but they're not done yet. We're not completed. They're not done, completed.
Okay, you just said it 5 minutes ago they were
Dave,
done.
actually, we're not actually weren't even taking attendee questions yet.
Okay,
So,
perfect. Thank you.
Is it okay if he's
Yes.
he's from Flame Mapper?
This is your update time.
How you doing, everybody? Shay Broussard with Flame Mapper. you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you have to keep your mouth close. to the
Close, okay. Shay Broussard to Flame Mapper. Thank you so much. Yes, we've done a lot of the work. I think, like you said, we're waiting to hear what we hear back from CAL FIRE. Obviously, we don't want to put something out there that conflicts with CAL FIRE in the beginning. Obviously, there's going to be some conflicting data because our data is a lot higher quality than, because they don't have the ability to do that kind of quality for the whole state. I think they wish they did, but they have too much to do, and that data doesn't exist for the whole state. So I'm sure they would love to do that if they had that ability, but they currently don't because they have to do the whole state and they only have 30-meter resolution data. We're running at 5-meter resolution data, so 36 times more granular than what they're currently using. So with that said, like the chief said, waiting for the results to come out, and then we'll try to identify potentially the difference between them, and then make adjustments and provide our recommendations. In the meantime, we're still working on a whole different series of maps. That's just one map of a series of maps that we're doing for the district. So we're currently wrapping up completing those other maps that are focusing on mitigation all the way from risk to hazard. So it's a lot of work, but it takes a lot of diligence and a lot of time and big machines to do. So we're currently running those through our big machines now and working on trying to finish them up by the end of the year. Questions?
So when CAL FIRE issues their maps, you're going to have a report about flame mappers, or are you going to release flame mappers before CAL FIRE? How do you see that going?
We can share what we have from Flame Mapper as part of our hazard and risk assessment. But it should be known that we are not using the Flame Mapper maps as our hazard identification for the district. Okay, does everybody understand that?
I do.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're clear on when it's going to get released. I think.
I do have a question, which is if
And-
your data and maps are better, why wouldn't we start with them and then worry about the state later?
I don't think there isn't, how do I say this? There was no intent of using those as a hazard map. They were designed for mitigation. And so I don't understand the purpose of putting them out there for a hazard map if they were designed for mitigation purposes. We're waiting for the standard in the state, CAL FIRE, who does the hazard maps. And when they come out, we can compare what we have for data with those maps and see if there's any differences that we disagree with.
Okay, so we're going to wait. We're going to get CAL FIRE's map. That's what you're going to use. And then you're going to use Flame Mapper for extra information. Comparison. MJ, you're really the flame mapping.
Yeah, I guess I am a little confused because I thought the purpose of Flame Mapper was to do your own hazard map, but you're saying it's a risk map.
It's a hazard and risk assessment of our district. And the map helps identify where we need to do mitigation work to reduce the risk. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. I mean, that sounds very similar to what Moraga or Windows did, right? They created a risk map, and then they used that to prioritize the areas that they were going to cite first, right? And get them to do mitigation.
Yeah, that would be similar to what they did. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know, you don't want to share that kind of information ahead of the hazard map because it is different.
No, we have every intention of sharing it, but it's not completed yet. We're not done.
Oh.
We're not done with the process.
Oh, that's what Jay is saying.
Yeah.
They'll finish by the end of the year.
And we should really be clear that it's the CAL FIRE map that's going to determine whether you are in a certain high fire, very high fire. The flame mappers is not going to affect your insurance, which is a question we get a lot. Is the insurance companies going to look at certain maps? And flame mappers will be not used for anything except for the fire district's own internal review.
Correct. We're going to use those for mitigation, but we're also going to use it to compare with what CAL FIRE comes up with on their hazard well, basically, they don't do a risk assessment, but they do the hazard assessment, okay? So I know what we all want is we all want a map that we can adopt that delineates where these hazard zones are within the district. And CAL FIRE is the standard for that, and that's what we're waiting for. And then when we get that map and we look at it, if there's any disagreements, we have a process to petition for what we think would be right to correct that map and adopt it as our local hazard map.
Cool. I do have another question, which is then why can't we use the current CAL FIRE maps? As I understand it, the fire district has requested and required that we use a different privately generated set of mitigation hazard maps and not the current CAL FIRE maps.
Because they're more than 14 years old. They're too old.
I do really like the idea of you having this extra map that's going to help you determine where you're going to inspect and where you're going to focus your enforcement. I think that's a very useful tool. Is there any other questions? Any other questions from the committee on the fire maps? Any other questions from the attendees? Okay. So where we left this, have we decided if you're going to release the flame mapper information early, or are you going to wait until after you get?
We
the
cannot
CAL
do them early because they're not ready yet. They're not completed.
But when they are.
But when they are
completed-
completed, we can share them.
Okay.
And then it'll be clearly stated that when we share them, that they are a risk assessment.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get confusing and then people are confused by the two maps.
Could we get a presentation on them at this committee when they're ready?
Sure. I'm happy to do so. I'll be here. I don't think he'll be here.
Oh, we can make them come back and do it.
Yes, right. Don will never leave.
One of the reasons why Flame Mapper is up here today is because we were discussing this and trying to wrap it up by the end of the year before I do leave. And we have every intention of making a presentation on this, but like I said, they're just not done yet. We're not completed with our work.
Well, if you present it at our committee, there's a Zoom recording that anybody can watch. So it's a great venue. Okay, so do we have any other topics on your update?
Oh, yes. Last update, which we can do. You had asked about maybe a separate presentation, but it was on the inspection software, our software that we use to do defensible space inspections, which is called Fireside. I can talk about it in less than 10 minutes if that is doable, or we can do a separate time if you want.
It's not doable tonight.
No problem.
This is based on my email to Kim. I gave her a wish
Yeah.
list of things. That's what her update is. But also, one of my next wish lists will be, I'd love to know about prescribed burns, if we ever are
Oh,
gonna do
yeah.
any
Okay.
prescribed burns. And also, have we made any progress in shelter in place?
Okay, quick on the prescribed burns. We had our annual county, San Mateo County Fire Safe Barbecue, where a lot of us came for a presentation. And during that time, I spoke to one of the leads at Jasper Ridge, and it was in discussion on prescribed burns. And one thing that we were talking about was about letting residents know like in advance. So we talked about, hey, maybe because they're looking at doing more, but before we do that, we want to make sure we educate the residents on why they're being done and how they get done so people know and have an idea. And the health benefits that it has. But then maybe for next year, we're talking about creating a calendar for the year that basically will highlight, not necessarily down to the date, because sometimes you don't know, we have to go by weather conditions sometimes, but saying, hey, during the second week of February, there's going to be prescribed burns. So we're talking about putting together a calendar so that residents were already aware in advance of what to expect, rather than it just coming out through MC Alert, a few days before. That we were thinking about doing a whole segment on it, a education, pre-education, and then a notification way in advance. So that was just conversation we just had, nothing just casual conversation, but I think it was a good conversation that we're looking on coming together and planning more.
So there's definitely going to be a list of prescribed burns.
I can't say there's going to be a lot and where they are, but I know they're talking about doing them next year. And I don't know how many, this was casual conversation. But I know they're looking at doing one sometime beginning of next year.
I would love to learn more about that. I'm a big fan of prescribed burns and
Yeah. And we want to make sure the residents are educated on it too.
Yeah.
What was the other thing? Oh, shelter in place. I'm adding it to the wish list.
Okay.
And then as far as the inspection software, we can just do that at a whenever, just we'll plan for that. And I'm happy to do that.
think
That way
that's gonna be
residents
spring.
understand.
Okay, does anyone on the committee have any questions? Does anyone in the attendees have any questions for Kim before she leaves? Or
This one. I have one more quick thing I just wanted to add, just so people are aware. For the new software, it does come, the report does come by email. So the knocking on people's doors to try and get their email, and more importantly, to have them walk with us when we do the inspection. But we would really prefer is for people to call us so they can schedule their inspection so that we can make sure someone is there. Would be fabulous if residents were a little bit more proactive in contacting us to schedule the inspection. That way we can walk with them, educate them, get their contact information, and then they'll get the report. But for residents that are not home when we do hit their houses, we'll do the most that we can on an inspection on their process, but we do leave a door hanger, and that door hanger sends them, because it's all web-based, it takes them to a website where they create an account with a specific code. It's only for that resident. It's specific to every person, and then they can access the report. It's very easy to read. It's very detailed, tells you what was found, what the code section says, and what do they need to do to correct it. They can also take their pictures, upload it as they make these corrections, and it pings us and lets us know. So that's just a quick, small little summary. I just wanted residents to start getting used to it, but we can definitely do a presentation and make that more detailed for everybody.
and we'll probably cover that again if we get to communications today. Okay, so
So are you doing those inspections as part of the Firewise stuff, like when with Westridge coming up on their Firewise? Are you
We are doing it as part of our annual inspection.
just as part of that? So you're not doing anything specific to
If,
Firewise?
if people want it specific, well, that's a different for Firewise communities. That's a different assessment as part of the Firewise process. But we're doing them no matter what. Our goal is to hit 2,000 parcels a year and be able to hit every parcel every 3 years.
okay,
Thank you.
so we're going to move on to item B, discuss residents' questions about decking material. And I'm very sad to say, I think Phil finally had to get out of Zoom. So, but we're still going to answer his questions. So we got an email from Phil Palmer. He's in the ranch. And he said, at least one of my decks needs to have the planking replaced. What do you have for planking on your decks? He was giving it, he was asking me. And he said that he had corresponded with Ron LaFrance, who is the town consultant on building materials. And he was a bit confused by the list of materials available. And I thought this was such an important question because I also faced that issue with my wooden deck in the ranch. And in my case, I'm on a hill, so I can't replace the entire staircase with a concrete, let's say, staircase with metal posts. And yet I can't rebuild it with wood. And materials that are used for decking planks can't be used for structure. So MJ&D, the mitigation committee, agreed to research this issue and give us some guidance.
Oh, yeah. So, so Dee and I spent a couple hours going through the CAL FIRE building materials list website. And if you go there, you can search for decking And then on top of that, we searched for Class A. And that gave us 14 hits. And out of those 14, we broke them down to what they were. So there were like 3 that were composites, AZEC, Fiberon, and one other. And then there were a bunch that were actually hardwoods. And so, and then there were a couple of coatings that were like, I guess you could describe it as liquid hardy board or something. It says cementitious polymer coating. I know what it is. And we looked at various websites and stuff. So then what we did after that is Dee sent an email to Carol Bork, who then, she's the gatekeeper for Ron LaFrance. And it, huh? Ron LaFrance, he's the building official that he's a consultant building official who actually, I guess, determines whether or not a product is okay when you submit a permit application. And anyways, but he's going on vacation. But so hopefully by the next meeting, we'll know whether or not, for example, wood is allowed, because we weren't sure if unsustainable woods are allowed in Portola Valley. I don't know.
You mean particularly hardwoods that don't?
Yeah, like Ipe, and apparently there's a whole bunch of other woods now, compressed bamboo. And
Do we know that,
you
Kim?
know?
I don't know the specific to your answer, but I don't know how many people know that through the Office of the State Fire Marshal's office, there is a list of, which is what we all use when we look at products, if they're acceptable, especially if they're meeting Chapter 7A for construction or even for applications, whether it's paint, hardy boards, all that stuff. So, and I've never looked to see for these particular materials, but it would be a good resource. And if we can't find it there, I have another resource that I can reach out to if there's a list of specifics that you're looking for that are not on that list, to reach out to and find out how we can find out if they are accepted. Because I don't know if it's, I have not heard of a town or a jurisdiction, unless it's in their local ordinance saying you can use these materials or not. Usually it's if it's approved by the State Fire Marshal's office or the building commissioner standards.
Yeah, see, that's the problem is about 2 years ago, Portola Valley did a local ordinance and was very strict on what you could use for decking material. And at that time, they actually made it a little too strict. They said everything had to be non-combustible. Well, then people complained that they couldn't,
Find the materials.
Use a composite, right? Because that's combustible. So, then effective as of January of this year, they changed it. So now there's like 4 qualifications of what you can use. And it's stricter. It's different. Maybe not stricter, but it's different from what the state fire marshal says.
Okay.
And this is what's becoming
The
confusing,
issue,
because if you
yeah.
look at the BML, that just tells you everything the
Mhm.
state accepts,
Mhm.
which may not be what Portola Valley accepts.
Right.
And it's separate from the rest of the district. too.
And has Portola Valley come up with a list of recommended products yet? Or that's what we're kind of working on?
This is what we're dealing with, is that the town apparently doesn't want to recommend any particular.
It makes it
product.
difficult because it's a liability.
Yeah, so we were thinking maybe as the subcommittee, we would say, well, we went through the BML and we know that these products appear to be okay. But then it's still up to each homeowner to go to the building official with.
And present it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kim, at the appropriate point, I have some additional data
Yep.
I'd like to share that might be helpful. Is now a good time?
Yeah.
Sure.
Great. Okay. The state has 2 lists, at least 2 lists. There's the general fire marshal 7A list. There's also a WUI list where individual manufacturers could get their products certified and they get a little letter and everything for WUI. And as far as I know, there's exactly 1 composite product on that list currently, which is TimberTech's AZEK Vantage. And that's because it's all PVC, and they took the time to do the extra 20 minutes of flame test and get it certified. The town's ordinance specifies, or the fire code specifies, an extra 20 minutes. The wording is a little tricky. So when another person who was building a deck, I just happen to have built a deck, so I have some immediate experience, asked Ron, he's like, well, have they passed this wording of the test? And it's kind of like, well, God, they went and got a 20-minute test from the state. They got the certificate. On the good side, just recently, 6 Acorn had a deck approved by the town with vintage. So that's I guess a really positive sign empirically, because it was just approved. It's a synthetic, it's PVC. I think that's great. So I think there's hope there that at least there's one material that might be a composite. It's light, it's 2/3 the weight of traditional timber tech, because one issue with replacing high decks with a composite is they weigh a lot more. So you might have to redo all the structure. In some other decks in town, people have been asked to surround the post with hardy board.
Mhm.
There's also an issue of the underside of the decks, which I'm not going to get into because I don't know anything about it. But there was at least one instance of a composite being approved for deck material just this year.
The problem that we encountered is you can find the material for the slats, but it's the structure. And in our case, if you're on a hill, which a lot of the ranch houses are,
Yeah.
we cannot, our foundation guy said, no more weight. That's it. And so I would like to see us produce something this year or in the next 12 months where LaFrance approves it. I mean, so we have perhaps a couple different solutions. These are approved. If you go with this product, you are going to be approved. Because it just seems very arduous that you have to get your architect to submit 3 or 4 different things to the town to see what they're going to agree
We
to.
went through 3 rounds and we wind up with exactly what we submitted the first time, but twice they said, well, we're not sure we like this. It's like, okay, we just wasted a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So we will continue this, although we're not going to be able to continue it next month because we're going to be doing ordinances. And that's going to take up the whole meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
And Dee's going to be recovering from surgery. So let's work on
well,
this.
it might just be a simple email from
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
It's whatever works. I mean, and certainly we could get back to the 2 individuals who contacted us. Phil Palmer
Yeah.
and the Ducks, and we could tell them what we learned
I
in
will,
advance of the committee meeting.
that would be great to contact
Yeah.
Phil. One of us should. Okay.
Yeah, and Kim, if you have some other source, let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the ducting material before we move on? Okay. So, going to go to discuss how to improve resident communications, including identifying specific WPC goals and actions that would educate residents on wildfire preparedness. And I just want to put out there that what I'd like us to end up with at the end of, it's obviously not going to be tonight, but maybe it's in the next 3 months. What do we think is important to communicate? And also, what are we passionate about? I mean, we have a very small committee, and I see that we're going to be tied up with these ordinances for another couple months, which is an important job. But then where do we go from there? Do we focus on some kind of events? Do we focus on, it's been suggested that we help the fire district with some kind of guidelines and educate about ordinances? Do we go towards home hardening? Where do we want to focus our energies? And, we still have the whole question of insurance that is a mess. And so where should we not only, what should we communicate, but where do we put our focus?
My
And-
com-
and
Let me know
give us
when
a
you want me
chance
comments.
to
Yeah, think
discuss.
about. Yeah.
So,
Is
thoughts?
that a rhetorical question?
As soon as she says go, I'm ready.
No, seriously, you want us, you just wanted us to think about it for like December-ish, or
Well, I
you
mean, I
want
was-
to discuss it now, or?
Well, I think we should start discuss, we've got 20 minutes and, yes. Okay.
I am not
Okay,
able to participate in depth,
that's fine.
but
Yes.
I do want to tell Tim that I really appreciated the conduct of the two young men who came out to do our inspection last Friday. However, it was not as easy as it should have been for me to find out how to do it.
It's
And
good
it was
feedback.
Meg and Jennifer that actually got me to come and take the step to set it up.
And sending her the link, and it took me 5 minutes to find the link. It took to call,
Okay, wait, sorry, the link
to
that they.
get an inspection for her house.
Oh, yeah, we're working on that avenue because that's, I know that one.
If I were identifying an overview of what I'd like to see as a concept, it would really be, here's everything you need to do, here's how easy they all are. And by the way, it's not punitive or negative. And in particular, if you're gonna have trouble doing the stuff that the inspectors are recommending, there's a way to work with you.
Mhm.
But that's a lot of stuff to figure out. And like I said, I just don't have a lot of brain power.
Hence why I would love to do a presentation on the DS signs because I go into that a lot.
Let us discuss this first. The committee has to have a discussion first. So I did spend some time looking through all the websites that were available, including the district and emergency preparedness and our website, which I think has a huge amount of information, and MJ's, weekly tips. It's just so much information. And I kept thinking about the input we're getting at the Wildfire Preparedness Fair. And, I keep boiling this down to, I think it's just overwhelming. And I'd like to see some kind of at least a flyer go out that we send out on a yearly basis with like the top 5 things. Simple. Evacuation, you got to know your evacuation. Get an inspection. Because, anything we say isn't as easy or as knowledge giving as getting the inspector out on a property and telling you specifics. Yeah.
I don't know about other people, but I suspect from comments I have about fair and from talking to friends, I had a negative reaction to just what I would, and I'm on the committee, what I was hearing about the ordinances, and going through my head was, oh, you want me to pave Paradise and make it a parking lot? That isn't at all what I got when the inspectors came out, but that was my preconceived idea.
Yeah. So
part of our education has to be getting rid of that negative, heavy-handed, we're just gonna pave the property.
And I will also say, though, at the Wildfire Fair, it was interesting. About half the people that came said, nope, don't need to know about defensible space, already done that. It was amazing how many, and those were the repeat people from the year before. And then I probably pulled in about 75 people that were walking by that had no idea of what this was. And they stopped and they were mesmerized by what an ember storm was. And what do you mean a go back? And what do you mean I have to evacuate early? And they never even got any farther than that. So it's like, who are we targeting? It almost seems like we have to target different people, and we need to decide where we're going to put our energies.
Yeah, I just was surprised at how different my experience was compared to what I expected. And that message needs to get out so that people aren't as uninformed as we were finding out from the last.
Yes, okay. So Kim, what would you like? So MJ, do you have any comments about what? No, you can't leave yet. You have to wait. No, because we don't have a quorum if you leave. MJ,
If you
But-
leave, we all leave.
but I will, we'll wrap it up early today. MJ, do you have any comments about what you think we should?
No, I have, my problem, I'm so deep in, I just don't know what is really gonna reach people. I mean, I output a lot of stuff, but I don't feel I actually, get people to do things. So I don't know how,
Okay.
how we move forward.
Kim, we'd like to hear the fire districts.
Okay, so first, I'll start with Wanda with your comment. I think the way the draft vegetation ordinance, when it first went out, it wasn't something to be disseminated or shared to everybody. It was just made for a small group of people. And I think because of the terminology terms between that and the new fire code ordinance and the magnitude of the changes, and because it was much longer, so all these different things that were rolling out earlier this year, I think it really, because of the confusion, and we know how telephone works, you tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, and by the time you get to the end, it's like this magnified thing. We as a fire service, we have never operated that way with any kind of inspection when it comes to residential or construction for that matter. We've always approached everything in a way that we want to support a business. We want to support a resident. We don't want to shut anyone down. We don't want to stop growth. Our focus is to make sure that everything is done safely and by code. And we want to work with people. We always have. I've worked in a lot of jurisdictions in the peninsula, and the fire marshals and other inspectors I've worked with here, I can speak for this county, I can't speak to every county, but have always demonstrated a way of working with people, letting them know these are the things you need to do and helping them as they go along when they really can't. So I'm happy to hear the experience you had, because it is a preconceived notion that we're coming in with like our guns blazing. That's never how we've ever operated on anything. And I think that you saying that is a testament to when we go out to do an inspection, we want to be with people. We want to show people, because as MJ is saying, MJ puts out a lot of information out there, but the problem is people don't want to really read information. They don't have time. There's a lot of different reasons why. But when we go out and do an inspection, we are meeting with people. And that's why it's important, why we want people to engage. We want people to make those appointments for those inspections so that we could do it with them. But thank you for sharing that experience, because I think it'll help people to see we are not one to be scared of. We're not trying to instill fear in any way. So anyway, I wanted to just touch on that briefly on that's never been how we operate.
So
And
I am,
yes.
no, it's not. So what I'd like to do is, I would like to end a little early tonight. So I think I'd like to give us the action item that when we discuss this topic again, we have concrete suggestions of what we think we should work on to communicate. And I think that also includes the discussion if we are going to help you in some way with that vegetation guide, it would be good to either you and I talk or MJ and you talk and understand what that would mean. Do we have time for that? So, because we have to decide not only what we want to communicate, but how much time it's going to take, and what each of us are going to do, and what our schedule is like over the next few months.
Which I would love for next month when we do this ordinance discussion. There's two things I'll bring up that are actually a few things that'll help your committee when you said, about helping the fire district getting messages out, or what should you put your focus on, what you need to emphasize on. I think at that time, I will give you, just because for the sake of ending early, it's something that can be brought up and it'll give you clear direction on where you need to put your focus on, because I could tell you right now what they are.
But
Okay.
well,
I mean, we can go into next, I know you want
Yeah,
to finish
so-
early, so.
So, by the way, I think that for next month, you're going to be surprised. Your presentation and the questions will take the entire meeting.
Yeah.
I don't think that we'll have.
Oh,
much
no,
other
that'll
time.
be easy to address because it's part of my presentation. So I can tell you that. If I can just say one thing for a means of communication, because since this was what I wanted to bring up earlier in the update, and I know you want to leave, so it's just a quick thing, if you don't mind. It was another means of how to communicate to people, and I don't think it's something that's ever been considered here, but is to, which I have someone who I can dedicate for this project, but I wanted to throw it out, is to, because most people who come to presentations and meetings are the people who are doing things and trying to do the right thing. It's the ones that don't come that are uninformed. Well, to reach that population, because they don't do social media, is I was looking at starting a project on creating a local channel where we broadcast locally through a channel and put those messages, put that information, do presentations. So just food for thought. I wanted to plant that
Okay.
seed,
Okay.
and we can talk about it later on.
So,
It could be YouTube, but also on TV, like your news, local news. City of Millbrae does it. When I worked there, I used to do a lot of things on their local channel. They had their own local channel that was only for Millbrae residents.
so for schedule, so if they're going to present next in November, the ordinance, and we're going to start taking feedback. And I'll start the document just like I did the last time. So that won't, I'll ask you guys for feedback and I'll just incorporate resident feedback like I did last time. Will December also be about ordinance, or what do you think? Well, November will just be the ordinance. So then in December, all we'll do is, do we need to discuss the ordinance anymore in December? I mean, it sounds to me like if we gather feedback. Well, that'll be more the workshop with questions, but should I get questions from the committee? The committee will come prepared with questions. We'll have the workshop, and then we'll be getting resident feedback, possibly even before the November meeting.
If it's feasible.
We may not even need a document with feedback, because if we're going to have workshops, I mean, do you want, so if you have the first workshop in November at this meeting, do you want a second, you wouldn't want a second workshop at this meeting, would you?
I wouldn't mind if it's invited, but if you have other business in December, we can always do the workshop in January's meeting, since we're not doing the first reading till the end of January anyway.
No, I think we're saying we would do your
In November.
presentation in November.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
what will we do in December?
Do we want to discuss communication?
Well, and Kim is saying she'd like to know what people want, and especially not just the people that are already bought in the choir, but what the people outside the choir want. So
What are you thinking? Do you think,
I don't know.
when do you think we'll be able to bring up communications again? Do you,
I don't know, maybe we should do it in December and make it like a Christmas party too.
and then in January, then we can reserve January if we need to have more feed. I mean, it doesn't seem
Yeah.
to, yeah,
I think so.
okay. Yeah.
I'm open to whatever, you tell me.
Okay, so in November, it's going to be all about the ordinance. They're going to answer questions. They're going to have good reasons for the ordinance. You know, we'll provide feedback. We'll provide more documentation. We can give them constantly the document with all the feedback in December, because then they'll have a whole month to process that feedback. But we don't have to discuss it in the meeting. I'll just have to put it in the agenda items so that it's documented, and then we'll just pick up with communications in December.
Yeah.
Okay, so at that December meeting, I'm going to ask everyone to bring concrete ideas. I'm going to bring like some specific ideas that I think we could work on with communications, and we should discuss insurance and find and really think about. Yes, yes. Okay. Is there any questions from the residents about what we've talked about, or any comments from the residents? Okay. So then we're gonna move on and, there's no conservation committee update. Is there any mitigation committee?
No, we already. covered
Okay,
that.
finance and insurance, no. Staff updates, nobody's here. We discussed agenda. Everyone gonna be here next month?
Yeah.
Okay. And, then I'm gonna call this meeting. Do I have a motion to close this meeting? Second? Okay, the show of hands. Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Oh. Yeah, you were great.
Oh, thank you.
I felt your earnestness reaching out to me.
Well, good. It's pretty much the only one I got. This is my normal suit.
No, that's, it's very refreshing. Thank you.
Good, I'm glad. It's